Hey everyone, and welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond the Founder. I'm your podcast host, Luke Beestall, and I have a fellow UK guest joining us today in the online studio. His name is Ian Whitehead. He has gone from a project manager to become a purpose coach. And we're going to talk about that transition today, but also the story of where the highs, the lows have gone from in his life as well. And do you know what we love about this is Ian's actually a podcast host himself. I was so grateful to be on his show, and now we're doing it the other way around. So Ian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Luke. It's an absolute pleasure to be on. Thank you for the invite. And just to say as well for the listeners that your episode is now out from the 5th of May, so go and listen to it.
Well, yeah, because obviously we're recording this now on the 4th of May, and guess what? Your episode obviously is going to be released this weekend, so it's a little bit like we're just releasing episodes and value to the world.
Absolutely, back-to-back value.
Love it, mate, love it. Well, look, just to start this off for the audience sort of listening in or watching back, for you, obviously you was a project manager. You've now become a purpose coach. Tell us a little bit about that little transition and what it is and what it means to be a purpose coach.
Yeah, so I suppose I'll kind of take it back to, well, we all know kind of work is essential, right? We've all got bills to pay. But how many of us go through that daily grind where we're just conditioned to ignore that dull ache of being stuck? That dull ache of being frustrated and just completely unfulfilled by what we're doing. I feel like we're just conditioned to it from childhood, right? It's like, go to school, get good grades, get a job. Go to school, get good grades, go to college, go to uni, get a higher paying good job. And that's it, and pay into the system. But don't do anything you actually want to do. I feel like that's what we're all conditioned to do. And I was part of that, and that was just me a few years ago, really. So to others at the time, it looked like I suppose I had it all sorted out. So I had a really good job as a kind of senior project manager, came with a fantastic salary, and was kind of many rungs up on that career ladder that we're conditioned from that young age to climb. And I probably would have stayed climbing that ladder had it not been for just this one day and this one moment where it was such a profound and vivid memory. It kind of completely changed the direction of my life. So it was a Thursday evening. I can't remember the date specifically, but it was a Thursday evening, and it was in December. And it's that time of year when you wake up and you start work and it's dark. You finish work and it's dark. It feels like everything you do is just in the dark. And I'm sat there in this office and I'm working. I'm a little dog, Milo, little border collie. He kind of pee, right? Sorry, go on.
No, I was just saying, I was just literally like basically with dog Milo.
Yeah. Well, he needs to pee, right? It's late. He wants to go for a pee and he wants to go to bed. And so we start scratching at the back of the chair here, and then he puts his paws on the side of the arm of the chair, and he starts pawing at my shoulder. And I look at him, and he's got that face on him, and he's got those eyes that all dogs have when they want something, where they just make you feel so guilty for ignoring them. And I remember pushing back away from like the glare of my laptop and just back out into that darkness. And I'm looking up at the clock, and it's just coming up to like the 16-hour mark on the working day. So it's almost like 11 p.m. And I look out the window. All the neighbours' lights are out. My partner's already gone to bed, and I look down at Milo, and my head is just this fog of noise. It feels like it's literally buzzing. And his little whimpers and he pawing at me. It's making my head throb, and it's not like a headache, but it's like a throbbing white noise that is just buzzing around my head. And I'm sat there, and I got my head in my hands like this. And I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing? What is this? Is this it? And it was kind of one of those moments where, is this it for the rest of my life type moments? Am I going to be working late into the evenings and weekends, ignoring my partner and my dog for the rest of my life? And for what? You know, I was earning good money, but that's being put away for the pension, right? Which is years and years and years away. So, but what about kind of right now? Because I felt so guilty and so ashamed for yet again working late into the evenings and on weekends and ignoring my partner. And also as well, I wouldn't even want to talk. So I'd shut the laptop down at the end of the day and I would just want to sit in complete and utter silence because my head just had that buzzing fog of noise just whirling around. It was horrible. And so I just want to sit in complete and utter silence, and I'd be overcome, like I say, with this guilt and this shame. And I just thought to myself, I'm sick of this. I've had enough. And so in that moment, I made a kind of snap decision that something would change, and I can't do this anymore. I can't be the person who's consumed by all that work only to neglect the things that actually really matter. And so I thought something's got to change. Was it going to be easy? No, probably not. Far outside my comfort zone. I'd only ever known a few things in my life, which was driving and then project management. So, I didn't have a lot to go on. But that decision kind of pushed me forward and kept me moving, really. And I wanted that part of me who loves to explore and dream to win over the part of me that was kind of afraid of that stepping out of the comfort zone. And so I basically started to Google and research how people made money online. And after trying multiple things, I eventually came across coaching, and it was the second time I'd heard it, actually. So someone, as a project manager, you mentor junior members of staff to help them progress in their careers and become full project managers. And one of them turned around to me one day and said, "You'd be a good coach." At the time, I just didn't really know what they were talking about. I thought it was, "Coach, what's that? That's a sports coach." Or it was that, or some hippie tree hugging nonsense. That's how ignorant I was to what coaching was, really. So, but when I came around to it and started seeing it more and more online, when you start searching things online, you just get bombarded and flooded with the ads, don't you? So I kind of got into it. And I really started to love what it was all about. And I started having all these little light bulb moments for myself, and why I was working so much, why was I working so late into the evenings on weekends. And I figured all that out in coaching, and kind of changed the way I worked then from that moment forward. So yeah, I thought, right, this is it. This is for me. So I took like a 12-week program. I got my certification in coaching. I set up my own coaching business, and funnily enough, it was helping stressed, overwhelmed 9-to-5ers to escape the 9-to-5. But as much as I loved the conversations we were having, there were parts of those conversations that I just did not like. And it was the setting up of the business side of it. So, you start getting into those conversations around the marketing and all that stuff, and it just didn't interest me at all. I started to get caught up in all that and all the online world. I just started to feel kind of lost again, like I was meant for something more than what I was doing. And so you start to kind of get a little withdrawn in yourself, and it just became probably a bit of a pain to live with, because at the time I was at a full-time job, and then I was doing this on the side as well. I was just drifting. And again, it was another moment of something's got to change. And again, that decision was made, something's got to change. And I thought, I'm obviously putting out something that is attracting the wrong kind of person. So what do I do to change what it is I'm putting out there when I'm talking to people? Because I don't do social media, but when I'm talking to people, what am I saying that's attracting the wrong kind of person to what I want to coach with? And I found this company called the Life Mastery Institute. And it's one of those, I'm sure you've seen them, that are like 5-day challenges, 3-day challenges, whatever it is, for master your message. But as part of that, they obviously advertise what they do. And I just absolutely fell in love with everything that it was about. So it was about helping people to achieve their dreams. And part of what I was doing at the time when I was coaching was understanding what that person's impossible dream was, but then we tied it to the business, and then we got into the business conversations. But the dream aspect of it, I really, really, really loved. And this was just purely the dream aspect, helping people achieve their dreams. And so I kind of enrolled in that, studied over a 9-month period every day, and discovered this. It's just a beautiful, elegant reliable, repeatable system for turning your dreams into the reality of your life, I suppose, so to speak. But I had to go through it myself as well. And so it started to change my life. So it wasn't just me coaching other people and something I haven't done. It's me coaching people and something I've done and I'm living now. And it's such an incredible thing. And to take it from where I was when I was just that lost, buzzing fog of noise in my head and then drifting to where it is now, it's such a difference. You know, I'm waking up in the mornings now and I'm kind of full of this adventurous inspiration to see where the day's going to go, where the business is going to take me, what conversations am I going to have today. So yeah, I don't know whether I actually answered your question then, Luke. I kind of just waffled and rambled on a bit there.
You did answer it, Ian. Thank you for sharing that. And I say this quite often to the guests who come on the show, that the tangents and just sort of going like veering off, right, are sort of the best parts. There was loads of questions that was kind of coming up for me that I want to ask you, and I think where I want to ask you first is, look, I mean, obviously you was in project management, just so the audience can understand this career ladder, this sort of thought this was like, you've cracked it, is this it, have I made it? How long was you in project management for before and obviously how long you've been in coaching, just so people can see the difference on that?
Yeah, so I got so I started with the company I was working for back in 2013. I'd basically got back from traveling, ran out of money, so got home and I basically took the first job that would have me, and it wasn't in project management at the time. I was just basically the dog's body of the office, so I was the lowest of the low in the office. It was like 13 grand a year is the salary. Okay. And then it was such a young business as well. So it had only been going like 5 years. And so they let you kind of try different areas of the business. So I went out with engineers, and I was working with people who were dealing with contracts, and then I was helping, worked in finance for like a week or so, and I was like, no thanks, none of that. But I helped in the marketing, and then I kind of fell into order processing, and then helping out on small little projects. And I kind of fell into it from there. It was a case of, at the time, I saw my career going in projects. It wasn't a case of, I have to do this. It was more a case of, this looks like it might be a decent career, good opportunities, right? And so I kind of forced them to give me the job. So I would go in at like 6:30 in the morning, and I'd take my little Prince 2 guide book and APMP, and those are the qualifications, APMP book, and I'd sit there and study whilst it was nice and quiet in the office and no one was there. And I couldn't do it at home at my mum's, because I got back from traveling and I ended up on my mum's sofa, bless her, thank you, mum. So yeah, I just kind of forced them to give me the job. So one of the directors would come in and see me working, and he'd kind of like mention it to the other owners of the business, and then they just said, look, we can see you want to do this, let's give you the career path to do it. So here you become a project coordinator and then junior project manager. And so I ended up doing it for about 7 or 8 years. And then from there, that's when the kind of transition started into coaching. But as we were kind of touching on a little earlier before we hit record, I kind of still dip into it, because as much as it's stressful and it was unfulfilling to do it constantly every day, it's still a challenging, good role to do. It's so varied, no day is the same. So if that's your thing, then it's a good career to have. But yeah, so as unfulfilling as it can be when you're doing it every single day, it's a good little change of scenery, and I'm all about change. I get bored quite easily sometimes.
But I mean, yeah, totally relate to that though as well, Ian. I mean, 8 years in a career, obviously it's very clear to sort of hear from what you've shared that you've got a desire to improve. And I think when you sort of go in this ladder, it seems like forever to sort of progress. It's a bit of a slow burner. Now, I'm not to say that people can't progress quickly, but you sort of hear people that, I don't know, just as an example here, they are on 30 grand a year and it's taken them 20 years of commitment, working more than they paid for to then jump 15 grand, right?
Yeah.
As an example. Whereas it's not always about the money, but if you've got bills to pay and you're also unfulfilled in the role and you're not learning, if you're someone who's creative and you've got this hunger to win and thrive and progress, that's a long time. Like what's the drive? What's the incentive, right? So obviously for you then, you've now become this purpose-driven coach that helps people go from unfulfilled, lost, to building the dream, wherever that is. Did you lose your purpose then in project management?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I felt lost and like I was drifting. Like there must be more than just this. I don't want to be here to just save money for retirement, because that's all I was doing, working all these hours just to save money in retirement. But the work I was doing was obviously, so it was needed. So a lot of the work was blue light projects. So I'd be working with police, ambulance services, fire services, that kind of thing. So if you were to dial 999 or 911 for any Americans listening, the person answering that call is answering it on a phone that I would be in charge of installing and managing the implementation of. So there's obviously quite a lot of responsibility, because if you can't get through to 999, then people's lives are at risk. So there's so much kind of responsibility and stress that come with that, and it's just I don't need it. Don't want it anymore. Had enough. And yeah, it's just that it was that drifting. It was that drifting and that feeling of being lost and not living up to what I thought I should be living up to, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I knew I was more than what I was doing.
Yeah, and so this is good actually, because obviously I'm sure there's people listening in on this episode and are probably maybe in a place now where they're feeling a little bit lost, or maybe they've had those thoughts. I mean, obviously you would have probably felt the signals, because our bodies does give us warning lights. We do get we might ignore it. We might just think, oh, it might get better. Obviously for you, it started striking more and more. And then that moment obviously shifted everything for you with the dog and your partner and everything like that. For you though, would you have said maybe 10 years ago that you would be a coach and helping people change their lives?
Not at
How
all.
crazy is that?
I know. Like I was saying at the time when my colleague mentioned it, I was like, I'm not a sports person. I mean, I love sports, but I'm not a sports coach by any means. And like I say, I thought it was like some tree hugging hippie nonsense.
Yeah.
I just did not know what coaching was that long ago. So no way would I have thought that. What I would have potentially thought is something to do with some kind of involvement of adventure and exploration, because that is me at the core. Adventure and exploration and getting out there. So it would have been something to do with that, which kind of probably leads into why I created the podcast as well, because I get to have those conversations around adventure and all that kind of good stuff, and why I went traveling, and what I do now as well as part of the kind of VIP and coaching that we do. We go out to retreats in the mountains and go on hikes and all this kind of stuff. So I've kind of weaved and built it into what I do with the coaching side of things. But definitely not.
It's crazy. I mean, you've obviously done a bit of a full circle. You've done sort of like your playful element of where you was traveling and probably not earning so much money. It was more just seeing what's out there in the world, and you've now been able to weave that in, like you say, to an actual business, which I think is really good, because this is key for business owners or anyone listening that is aspiring to have their own business, is to be able to have the fun element in it. But I'd love to know. Go on. You. I felt like you were going to say something.
No. I was just agreeing with you. I was like, yeah, because like I was saying, I tried so many different things, and nothing stuck. It's like, I mean, you might be able to go onto my Instagram profile, and see when I tried. This is so embarrassing. But I tried being. So I used to go traveling around the UK, but Milo the dog was like the Instagram influence. So bad.
Love it.
Well, you might be able to go on and see like old pictures of me and Milo as we're traveling around the UK, but it just didn't take off because I just got no interest in it, in social media and that kind of thing. So you've got to be doing something that you absolutely love. And whilst I was doing part of what I loved there, I was also doing something that I hate, which doesn't make sense now I think about it.
Yeah, but so when you say, okay, then, so this is a good question. So you was also doing something you hate. What made you feel that you had to maybe do that in order to, like if you didn't enjoy it, what made you do it then?
Because I liked the traveling side of it, and when you first start into research how to make money online, everything is social media, this, social media, that.
Yeah.
It drives me insane. But at the time, I just fell into that, and I thought, well, this is what everyone's telling me I need to do. All these experts and gurus are saying you got to do it this way, so I'll do it that way. And it just, never happened because I just do not like it. I think I mentioned it earlier. It's the only thing I like social media for is looking at hiking trails, people out hiking, so I can find my next hike, and then barbecue food.
Yeah, we said this, didn't we? We were talking about it when we were off air, but I think it's really great and refreshing as well, though, Ian, to hear this. Because obviously, I've had a bundle of experts and coaches and consultants and CEOs and founders on this show. That I know maybe their angle, they heavily rely on social media to generate leads to sort of, but it's nice to know that there is still the people call it like the old-fashioned way now, but it's not. It's still the a powerful tool. But before I sort of go into that, there's a question I really want to ask you, because obviously you was talking about coaching as sports coach, which most people think like football coach or tennis coach or whatever, right? But the coaching industry is probably one of the fastest growing industries year on year, because there's life coach, there's purpose coach, there's mastery coach, there's CEO, CEO coach, whatever, the performance coach. What does coaching mean to you?
Oh, that's a good question. Personally, when I'm being coached, and I'm on the receiving end of the coaching, it's the life-changing wins that you can get where you are so blind sometimes to your own worst enemy, and when those blinkers are just taken off. So I'll give you like one of the real core examples as to what one of my kind of breakthroughs was, which I touched on earlier, which kind of helped change the way I work. So this was during when I was going through my initial certification, the 12-week certification program. I was you kind of jump on and do practice coaching whilst you're earning your qualification, basically. And so I was being coached by someone whilst they were practicing coaching. And I can't remember anything but this one moment in the coaching session, because we got on to how stressed I was with work and overwhelmed and the hours I was working and all this kind of stuff. Don't remember what a question was, but the light bulb I had in that moment, and so it was something along the lines of, why do you think you work so hard? Who are you proving that you're working hard to? All that, something like that. I was like, oh my God. I just sat there and I thought, Ian, you absolute idiot. So I used to work with my dad when I was younger. So we're talking from about 7 or 8 up through to like 10, 12, and then a little later as well. I'd used to work with him on weekends. And there's one point in the summer when I was really young, 7 or 8 years old, I'd go work on the peat works with him. I don't know whether you know what the peat works are. So you essentially plot of land that has peat in it, and I'm basically getting a block of peat like yay big, like a cylinder block size, and you stacking them up into make a wall, just to break it up. And they would do this and then break it up and move it back and then move it that way, just so it stops it combining, so they can then ship it out or whatever. And this wall's about 50 meters long, and so I was just doing that all day during the summer, and it was like back breaking. breaking work. And again, I was like 7 or 8, so but my dad said to me, there's a difference between working hard and working hard at hard work. And that kind of stuck with me. Now, I internalized this in my dad's view of, he's a manual labourer, so that's hard work. And when I'm sat behind a desk doing my project management, I'm sat down, not doing hard work. So yes, I can work hard, but it's not hard work. And so that's why I was going above and beyond and over and above, whatever you want to say, with the amount of hours and weekends that I was working, all to prove to my dad that I was working hard in his eyes. And I remember speaking with him, and he was like, no. I just didn't want you to have to, I wanted you to work hard during school so you didn't have to do the hard work of manual labour. So I internalized what he said completely opposite to what he meant. And so that kind of breakthrough moment from that session changed the way I worked from then on. I'd log off on when the day shift had finished. It was great.
But this is so good though. That one question, who are you doing it for? Who are you doing all this for? Or what point have you got to prove? And I think obviously, being a coach myself and having these, I totally see, sort of, it's more of like a helicopter's view or something. Like you say, we are our own worst enemy. We do give ourselves quite a lot of negative self-talk. We are very much set in our own ways, and that exploration, if we use that word, because obviously that's big in your world with adventure, it's we sort of lack that. We're very much just, like you say, is this it? And we just get up. I know we love routine, but the routine can be quite mundane and quite stagnant. Yep. So for you then, when you decided to take the transition into obviously purposeful coaching, what was the first thing that you started to notice, or maybe a partner, or even Milo would start to notice in you as a person and your behavior by doing something that was different to what you'd been doing?
I suppose I can answer this from my perspective.
Yeah.
But I'd just be more energized. As simple as just being more energized. You wake up in the morning and I'm not, what we're going to do today, and not really want to do anything. And, you sit on the sofa and you just don't want to get up. I didn't want to take Milo for a walk. Still do every day, but I never wanted to do it. Whereas now it's, let's go for a walk, lad. Come on. And, it's just that energy. That would be the first thing I noticed personally myself, is just the more energy that I had.
That's good, because they say, don't they, now that energy is sort of the most expensive currency. Where did that energy start to come from though? What do you think charged you up? What got you going?
So there's a thing I go through with clients now. So, and this is what I went through as part of being coached in that Dream Builder program as well, is getting back to an energetic state where you are living as the person who has achieved their dream. So what we say is you want to come from your dream rather than go to your dream, because if you go into your dream, you're kind of constantly chasing it. And you want to train your subconscious to believe that you have already achieved a dream, because then you become aware of all the opportunities, and so it becomes then easier to achieve the dream, if that makes sense. That's very high level. But what we do is we practice, I'll give you an example of a session that we go through. So we'll practice gratitude and are proud of at the start of every session. So what you're grateful for and what you're proud of yourself for, not what you're proud of anyone else, what you're proud of yourself for. And then we go through like these visualization exercises. Now, your subconscious does not know the difference between reality and non-reality. And so when you're in this energetic level and you go through breathing exercises to get into that level, and you're closing your eyes and you're going through this visualization exercise, your subconscious thinks that's real, and your subconscious drives 90% of your behavior. And so we want to train that subconscious And so it's going through those exercises over a long period of time. It's not just a quick one and done. You don't just do it once and then it changes you. You have to do this as a daily practice multiple times a day. But once you get into the habit of doing that, so you train your subconscious to create a habit out of doing it, it becomes so much easier, and it's just something you naturally do. You then start to live as a person who's achieved that dream, so your energy's up. Your energy is the person who's achieved that dream, so you're naturally more energetic because you're naturally more fulfilled. You naturally live in that dream life that you would absolutely love to live. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I think what's sort of screaming out to me here is obviously it's work on yourself, right? So, the problem, what you had found is it was you, right? You was the problem. It's like, I'm not energized, I'm lost. Is this it? There's a lot of deflation, a lot of lack of energy, sort of going through the motions, feeling a little bit sort of, like you said, right? But then you decided to change, and that change started with you. So I know people might be listening in here, and this, what you shared is brilliant, but I think just what I'm really taking from what you're sharing is that if someone here is tuning into our episode today in our conversation, is that, all right, we know that people might not be on that mindset just yet to do, what are you talking about? I need to write down what I'm grateful for. Are you mad? I don't want to do that. You're telling me, exactly, right? I mean, I've been there myself. So, you're telling me I need to what's my dream? What do you mean, what's my dream? Like, what are you talking about? I've got to go away from a dream, blah, 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 whatever. But it's like, I guess it's just being able to sort of check in with yourself and actually look at like your energy, look at, are you operating, where are you operating from? Are you operating from someone who is taking ownership or victim? I mean, there's so many different distinctions, but I think what's really good here in what you're sharing is that you had got to a point in your life where something had to change, but but obviously it came from, you're talking about your dad, you're proving a point there, but obviously you were losing this, or you was distancing this relationship from your partner and your dog, because obviously all you was on was the laptop. But, in the moments where you was in this project management world, and because obviously a lot of people sort of look at like what was at stake, what do you think would have happened if you wasn't to change and you would have still been in that project management world?
I probably would have gone on to be senior project manager and then potentially program manager as well. These are good career paths for people and pay really well, but I would also have gone on to continue that feeling of being lost, continue that feeling of drifting. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and there's one by a chap called Rich Litvin.
I know Rich. Yeah. Well, I don't know him, but I know the coach. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know where I came across his podcast. I just happened to stumble across it and listen to a couple of episodes, and he tells us this story, and that was one of the kind of triggers as well for me that kind of solidified this. Something's got to change. So I listened to this particular episode after I thought something's got to change. I got to change the direction of my life. He tells the story of this chap who invented dynamite. And he was doing it for mining. He invented it for mining and going down into caves and mining and all this kind of stuff. But obviously, people used it for bad things like war and all that kind of bad stuff, sorry. And then one day, he picked up the newspaper and he read his own obituary. His brother had just recently died, and the paper mistakenly printed his obituary, and it was Dr. Death Dies. And so he saw what the world thought of him, and he thought, I've got to change something. Something's got to change. And so he then went on to completely change the direction of his life. He left, obviously, the mining world behind and everything that came with that and the dynamite side of things. And he poured his savings, his life work into creating these prizes for kind of peace and literature and science and all this kind of stuff. and it's the Nobel Peace Prize and all that kind of stuff. So his name's Alfred Nobel. And the question at the end of this podcast was, what do you want to be written on your gravestone? And so I answered that question as I was listening to the podcast. And then after that, he says, if you were to die now, what would be written on your gravestone? And I was like, oh, God. That's not a kick in the stomach. I don't know what is. So yeah, that was like another kind of signal and kind of kick up the backside. That's something's got to change, because all I could see then on that gravestone was a guy who drifts.
Right.
A guy who drifts. So that's what my life would have been had I not changed the direction. A guy who drifts.
Damn. Yeah. it's talk about mic drop, bombs dropped, hits home. I mean, I love, again, just that, again, personal development there for people to sort of have access. I mean, Rich Litvin, One Insight, I've listened to be honest, when I was on a podcasting sort of binge, I was so invested in his stuff, Steve Chandler's work with Rich Litvin and stuff like that. The Purpose, I think he does, I can't remember his book, but his coaching book, I've read it and stuff like that.
Purposeful Coach, is it?
That's it. Yeah.
Prosperous Coach. I've got it there. Prosperous
Coach. Yeah, Prosperous Coach. Yeah, really, really good. But just something that's come to mind as well, actually, whilst you sharing that about the sort of end of life, as we call it. I've done that on a business retreat, writing your eulogy. And because it's what you're remembered for, right? I mean, you go to a funeral, no one's talking about how many Ferraris you've owned or how much money you've got in the bank or how many properties you own. Whatever you want to do, it's basically how did you make people feel when they was in your presence, and for you to sort of openly say, and I think it's quite a reality check, isn't it, where you sort of said,
oh God, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm this guy that just drifts, like, oh wow, but just that, your from your sort of own perspective now, looking back on yourself upon hindsight and in reflection, and you could talk this to the general people maybe listening as well, why do you think we choose to ignore it, the reality?
Comfort. For me, it's purely comfort. So it's easy. So in the job I was doing, bills paid, didn't have to worry about money. Yes, I wasn't rich or anything like that, but I had money to pay the bills and I didn't have to worry. So it's comfy. It's like the golden handcuffs, I've called it before, the golden handcuffs of comfort. Yeah, I think that's the easiest way I can explain it. It's just comfort.
But we have, it's. I do think we live very comfortably. But when we all hear these sayings, right? YOLO, and we've got one life, so let's live it. Life's not a dress rehearsal, and these people that are coasting are saying that. Why, in your opinion, why do you feel that people still choose again to stay in that place?
Yeah, that's a good question. I suppose there's the people that are going to need the kick up the backside. So I talked about this not long ago with a chap called Nigel Bottrell, who owns the Entrepreneur Circle. I was interviewing him as part of like a spotlight campaign I'm doing with it. And we were talking about, I was like, what was the moment that motivated you? What was that one moment for you? And his was like, he saw the death of a couple of friends all within like a short period of time, what have you. So I think there's the people that need something serious, like a massive health scare or a death in the family, whatever it is, to give them that kick up the backside to then go on to change their life. And for the other people who don't get that, unless the pain you are experiencing is greater than your fear of achieving something, for me, you're always just going to drift in that comfort zone. You're never going to be inspired enough to be greater than the kind of sum of your fears. So I say this a lot to to my clients in. So I tell my clients to think of their impossible dream. What is their impossible dream that they believe could not happen? And forget how you think it might happen. Just forget that. We just want to know. Think massive, like think as big as you possibly can as to what your dream life would be. And a lot of people go, well, I don't even know what I want. Well, how do I answer that question? And so what we do is we go through an exercise of where their longing and their discontent is. And without that discontent, you're never really going to have a passionate longing. And so you need that pain, but it will only get you so far. It'll get you so far to the point where you are then overcome by all your fears as well. So you need that dream to then pull you the rest of the way to help push you past those fears. But without that pain in the first place, if you're just living a life of comfort and ease, then you're just going to live vicariously through other people who have had that pain and are living that dream life.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, sort of those sort of perspectives there. I do believe, a lot of people sort of make that big shift when they've had the scare. I don't feel people should really wait though to for that sort of scare, especially when you're only 30 once, you're only 35 once, etc., etc. There's only stages of your life that there's things that you can do well, and obviously as you get through later on in life, depending on whatever happens, you might not be able to do the things that you maybe wish or once wanted to do. I think also, yes, obviously, absolutely the risk of aversion. A lot of people, we seem to love, and I don't say thrive, but we love loss. Like we love the pain of losing rather than the pain of winning. It's like if we're winning, it's like, or if we're doing well, for example, it's like we're waiting for something bad to happen because it just can't be right. It's as though we shouldn't be doing well. We should be suffering all the time. I feel like that's something that's quite common in our society.
Yeah, and there's that, as we were talking about earlier, there's that conditioning from when you're a kid. Get good grades, go get a job, have a career. No one is pushed when they're a kid to achieve their dreams. You ask a child what they want to be when they grow up, and they come up with these dreams of I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a football player, and whatever. How many of them actually go on to then go for it and try? And they don't, because they just get beaten down in school to, oh no, you can't do that. I mean, I don't know whether you had, at my school, we had career counselors,
right?
Guidance counselors or something like that. And it's just, you go in and you tell them what you want, and they're just like, how about this? You'll be good at this. Taking what you're good at with your grades, you'll be good at this. And they tell you where to go, and a lot of people just fall into that without questioning it. And I know I certainly did. I didn't question it at the time. So when I left school, Jesus, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so then I went to university, took business management. Didn't know what I wanted to do after that. Took some rubbish sales job, and I thought, I'm not doing this again. That's awful. So I did like the probation period of that, and then I went off and I did a driving job for a good couple of years. And then even one of my jobs was checking tires on trucks and coaches to make sure they were roadworthy. I mean, how boring is that? What kind of life is that? And that would be like 10 o'clock at night till 7 or 8 in the morning, because during the day they're all out on the bloody road. So I could only check them at ridiculous hours of the day. I mean, you just get conditioned to be in these careers where you, I sound like a conspiracy theorist now, but you get conditioned to be in these careers where you're just paying into the system and being a good boy or girl.
Well, I mean, you don't sound like a conspiracy theorist, Ian. I think obviously most people that are in, I think people who, listen to this show and are hearing your episode will probably be going, because they don't want to be where they're part of the societal norm. They want to step out. They want to grow and be above probably where their circles at, the people that they're around at the moment and the conversations that they're having daily. So for you now, then obviously having exposure to this personal development world, obviously you've been coached yourself, you've got the qualifications, you're still learning, you're giving back to people, you're helping other people now come from that sort of stuck to, purpose and all those things. What do you ultimately as a dream now, moving forwards, want to be able to give to the world?
So I'm basically on a mission, and this is through my podcast, my coaching, the community that I'm just launching, my speaking, the book that I'm writing. I'm on a mission to help create 1 million. 'Cause for me, that's just an impossible number. To help create 1 million purpose and adventure-driven entrepreneurs, because we don't need people like I was doing. They say you kind of teach what you want yourself in life, but we don't need people who are just trying something that isn't fulfilling for them, and they're not living on purpose, and they're just creating another cage for themselves. The amount of times I've spoken to business owners who thought they were building themselves freedom and more time with the family and stuff, but instead they just built a business that was like a 9 to 5, only now they had more responsibility and stress and everything else that comes with running a business. So I want to help create 1 million purpose and adventure driven entrepreneurs. And the adventure for me is so important, because it is for me personally. I know we kind of touched on it slightly when you were on my show, but the moment you're out in the mountains, or I'm out in the mountains, I can literally feel, so that I was talking earlier about that buzzing fog of noise in my head, I can literally feel it draining away. It's crazy how it happens. And it was the first time I ever experienced that, it was so liberating and freeing. And whenever I'm out there now, it's just pure and utter freedom and peace. And I want other people to have that. And I've never found it anywhere other than in adventure. So when I'm out hiking or mountain climbing, or when I was traveling, we were doing whitewater rafting, and nearly died. It was crazy, but it was just still pure peace and freedom, because you're so in the moment and in the zone. It's like you're living in. It's almost like you're living in a bit of a dream as you're going through those moments. And when I'm on that trail, just the whole majesty of the place as well. It's like drinking what is it they call it, the ambrosia, which is like the nectar of the gods kind of thing. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain how it kind of makes me feel, the adventure side of it. And so that's why I have these retreats in the lakes and up in the highlands and all this kind of stuff for the VIP coaching side of things. And as part of the community now, I'm inviting people from the community just to come on hikes with us, as well, because for me, you have to be having that escape from the everyday to help you realize what it is that you want. It's I wrote a tiny rubbish little book to try and help me explain it, and there's one line that I came up with, and the rest of the book can just not exist apart from this one line. And it's about stepping away from the noise long enough to hear the whispers of what truly matter. That's what it is for me. And so, yeah, helping 1 million entrepreneurs to become purpose and adventure driven, because then they'll be going on to create things that are going to benefit not only themselves but the community around them.
That's amazing, mate. No, you did. You answered the question. You went off on a tangent and then you come back to it. So I thought it was great, mate. But I want to ask this question because you've just said something there about that one line in your book. What was the whisper for you that mattered?
That's a good question. So again, listening to another podcast, there's it was Modern Wisdom podcast by Chris Williamson.
Yeah, Chris Will.
Yeah. So there's a quote by, it's attributed to Thomas Carlyle, and this quote for some reason just popped into my head long after I'd listened to it whilst I was out on a hike and all that noise quieted down. And it was, give a man a purpose and the ability to achieve it, and he will crawl across broken glass with a smile on his face. And that is the whisper. That was the whisper for me. And that was as I was hiking around Buttermere, doing haystacks and that kind of circular route there. It was just the most incredible day on my own. Well, I say I was on my own. I had Milo with me as well. But yeah, that was the most incredible day, and that was just rattling around in the back of my head the whole hike, and that's where the kind of drive towards purpose kind of came from, and mixing purpose and adventure in with all the dream building stuff.
Yeah, I think it's really great, by the way, to just hear sort of being in nature, obviously sharing it now as well with the people that you're helping, to have that experience, to be able to say, hey, this is the adventure, this is the sort of the whisper, the I guess where the clarity comes from over the confusion, because obviously around the noise, probably when you're down below and you're in the environment of technology and what we're exposed to day to day, we don't necessarily probably see the view of the mountain, because obviously as we know, people, they want to see the view, they don't want to do the climb, but the climb's probably where you see the view, and then that obviously relieves the pressure, the stress, and brings the clarity, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's science backed as well. So it's not just wishy washy talk. It's all science backed. And one of the things that I tell a lot about to my clients is we get stuck in a constant cycle of not full anxiety and full fear, but you're constantly on edge waiting for that next notification, that next email, that next whatever it is. Whereas, and you kind of get into this circular fear of decisions that you need to make every single day. Whereas when you're out in the mountains, you've got one decision at a time as you hiking up that hill. But you're also training your amygdala, which is responsible for your fear. It's kind of like your fear response part of the brain, and you're training it to recognize what true fear is, because you're actually facing real danger when you're out there. It's like some of the hikes you do, like Crib Goch, I could literally fall down the side of that ridge and die.
Yeah.
So you're literally training your amygdala to understand proper fear rather than fear of, is this person going to like me if I post this on social media? That kind of nonsense. So it's all science backed as well. There's something called forest bathing, which I was introduced to on my podcast. As I was interviewing quite a few of the business owners that I was interviewing, recommended forest bathing, and that's just literally going out into the forest for a couple of hours and not really doing anything apart from walking around and taking in the scenery, because there's something about the colour green on the trees that just soothes and calms the stress levels in the brain or whatever it is. But yeah, it's more than just me thinking, get out there, get some adventure down you. It's more than that. There's a reason, and like I say, for me, it was that clearing that fog and noise. I mean, if I can help just one person experience that moment, honestly, it's life changing when that fog just literally melts away. It's crazy. So such a liberating experience.
Yeah, and you can tell anyway, from what you've shared with us, you can really see just how much just being outdoors, being in those environments has changed the whole trajectory. And obviously, the personal development side of things, and, learning and looking after your own needs and ends to be able to develop yourself, has, I guess, developed you into this sort of coach that really wants to help people. I mean, Ian, we are getting towards the end of the episode, my friend, which it's mad because you can sort of, we could go down so many different avenues, but I think this is a really good question to ask in this moment as we are on this sort of wavelength of where we are. It's a question I do ask every guest anyway in the show. I'd love to know from your perspective, what does mastering your life mean to you?
I suppose for me, it's exploration. And what I mean by that is, so I am someone who is constantly curious, constantly looking for some more meaning. And I know I talked about earlier, I was feeling lost and drifting and all that kind of stuff, and that meaning as well, but not just meaning from a being lost, perspective, but just meaning in general, in everything you do. And I think when you can find that meaning in everything you do, it helps you understand where it is you want to go in life, and that to me will then help you master your life. And that for me is kind of mastery of life, is exploring and being curious and searching for that meaning and that purpose. That's probably why I do what I do.
Yeah.
To help people find it.
Yeah. But also, you're still on that path yourself, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
You're staying in that lane of feeling purpose and stuff like that. That's brilliant, and I think it's a great way to sort of bring together, sort of what we've shared in this episode today. And just for anyone that, like I say, has got to this stage in the episode and they would love to, maybe, I know you said you're not heavily on social media or active, where's the best place for them to sort of, if it's drop you a message or follow your work, where's the best place?
Yeah, they can't really follow it on social media because, like I say, I don't go on there. I don't really care about it. It's not me. So I suppose the best way would be, if they wanted to chat with me, it would be to kind of email me, contact@ianwhiteheadcoaching.com. But I've just launched a community as well, and there's a 7-day free trial that goes with that, so people can come in and dip into that community, see what it's like, and then if they don't like it, they can leave or stick around. And it's called the Legion, and it's on School. I'll share the link with you so we can share it in the show notes. But yeah, that's literally just launching as well, just as probably this episode comes out. So yeah, there won't be many people in there. So it's kind of a good time to get in there because you're going to be the first couple that come in. So I'm going to be kind of hassling you for kind of figuring out who you are and what you do and how I can help you and all that kind of stuff, really. So yeah, probably the school community, I would say.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, like saying, send that link over. Obviously, at least people can look down into the show notes and discover where's the best place to contact you. But look, from my side, thank you so much for being on the other side and sharing your wisdom and just being open and honest with us today. So I've really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, Luke. It's been a great chat.